And I think there's also that need for that new person to really kind of help them understand the why and keep things simple. So they're also become good investigative reporters, right? And when they're in that elevator, they're really trying to understand the needs that agent might have, and then making sure that their story, is a fit, right? Or which story is a fit.
We could just talk about medications as an example. We might have somebody that's on a specialty medication that is, treating a chronic condition. And that person may not want the whole public to know. They may even not want family to know about that medication. So there's a trust that has to be established there. And there's a lot of salesmanship and a lot of skill that goes into that piece of the sale for the agent. I think that our team does a really good job of being situationally aware of that. And we have so much expertise on support for that agent that not only can we, deal with the dynamics that the agent is dealing with in that moment, we also know that the good agents who do that very well, they get burdened by what we call post-enrollment service work.
Hey, welcome to the Sales Elevation Podcast. My name's Ed Kerr, and I'm excited to have Henry Figueroa on with us today. Henry is the VP of Sales for Spark Advisors. Henry, welcome to the show, man.
Great to be on the show. Thanks for reaching out and connecting with me. This is great.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you for being on, and tell me a little bit about you and your company. Tell me about Spark Advisors. What do y'all do?
Absolutely. So technically speaking, Spark is what we call a national marketing organization for health insurance carriers, most specifically in the Medicare space. My title's Vice President of Sales. I work with a team that works with 1099 subcontractors, or as we like to call them, agents, right? Independent brokers that offer health insurance plans from the carriers across the country, all over the country, all 50 states and Puerto Rico.
So how many of those agents do you have in your network currently?
As of today, 9,386 and growing. We've got several in the pipeline moving on over. Yeah, it's a good
Awesome.
number.
Well, I want to learn how your team really helps to partner with that team and help them become successful. But first, let's start off with your direct reports, and you're selling obviously to those brokers. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have with your direct team and helping them be more successful? And maybe let's start with a new hire. What when you're onboarding somebody, what do you do to ramp them up quick?
Right on. Great question. So, in the Medicare space, there's a large volume of regulatory information that our sellers need to be somewhat of a subject matter expert on. From day one, they don't necessarily need to be, but the more tenure and the more they have of the lexicon of Medicare, if you will, and all the regulatory, stuff that's out there, it really helps them accelerate their credibility and just their relevance in the market. Simple things like, for example, in our business, you're not allowed to approach somebody and just cold hand a business card to somebody in a solicitation type of conversation. It's a very simple, compliance item that we have to be aware of. And, a buyer from us would know immediately whether or not we know our Medicare stuff, depending on how we speak about just that thing. On top of that, there's several technology stacks that people need to be aware of. There's our own that we are selling to our independent brokers. You definitely have to quickly become a master of our content, our workflows, and how it affects the broader market in the industry in a positive way, which I love. I hope I get to geek out on that a little bit. And, internally we have like our own CRM and we have our own internal communication stuff. We use stuff for internal messaging with the different teams. We've got engineers, we've got client services, we've got customer service, our leadership team, and the whole nine. And so there's a lot actually to onboard and, ramp up to be successful in roles with our company on my team.
Got it. And so when you bring somebody new on, obviously they're probably at the end of a fire hose, right? With almost every position in any industry. When you bring them on and they've got to get obviously comfortable with the systems internally and then understanding your offering. And that takes, do you think, in terms of getting a facility with the skill set required and knowing the messaging, being able to effectively, kind of conduct that sale, what would you say is your sort of likely your time to profitability for a new hire? Does it take them 2 months? Does it take them 6 months? And what's the biggest thing that you can do as a sales leader that gets them there faster?
There you go. Love that. It's a really good question. Sales cycle for us, like in terms of profitability, I would probably offer that it can take as much as 18 months.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the same as signing and getting deals closed, but the way that revenue happens in our business, it's as earned, and it's always future. So one thing that, happens in our business is a customer would sign up for a health insurance policy, and it typically would take place on the first day of either the next month or some first day of some month in the future, up to like 6 months. And then, depending on when a agent joins us and their contracts line up, it could be 90 days before their sales start showing up on our schedule, if you will, on our commission reports and what have you.
Yep.
And so for one of our sellers to be successful, you would say like there's a 2 week ramp up just for internal systems. And then from there, there's anywhere from a 4 to 8 week, ramp up for their warmest relationships or prospects, getting some deals signed. And then there's an onboarding segment that takes place that can take a couple to 3 months, depending on the size of the agency and total number of agents that we bring on. And then production will start, anywhere from 30 to 90 days after that. And then there's a seasonality of the business. And so it can take a minute before profitability arrives. But
Yeah.
we've got all that modeled out internally and it works out great. We're doing really well. To accelerate the process, oftentimes during orientation, we will help support them with some marketing collateral, some things that they can push out to market sooner before they might feel 100% onboarded, but we can already start warming up the conversation ahead of time. Plus, our company right now has a tremendous amount of momentum in the space. And so you'll find us on socials. We're always on conversations in our industry, on some Facebook conversations, and also on LinkedIn. So we got some exposure that helps our sellers as they onboard.
Got it. Great. And then in terms of best practices and knowing that somebody is actually in your confidence is customer ready, like that process and getting them there. So instead of maybe time to profitability, maybe speed to proficiency or just customer readiness, what are the ways that you vet that internally?
Yep. So we have a process now where you actually have to be internally certified for our demos because we are selling a technology stack that includes customer service. We actually do have a process where our sellers need to practice and rehearse how they will highlight certain workflows and certain data points inside of our technology platform and services. And
Mhm.
then we have a learning and development lead and who actually helps train our people as they're onboarding. I work with that person closely as well as others to build out that curriculum. Our head of people, as we call them now, right? People historically might have thought of them as human resources, but
Right.
we have our people team who also does a wonderful job of orientation where we try to get people in the frame of what problems Spark is trying to solve, why our company is such a relevant product fit right now, right? Where this is a great disruption company, and how we are so relevant for the agents that we're speaking to. And so in contextualizing that and then learning to be really succinct, it takes actually a lot of practice. I mean, and you can appreciate, how many takes it might take
Yeah.
before somebody's ready to actually go on camera, demo, pitch, and close deals. And that doesn't even include sales negotiation.
Yep.
In our business too, there's a complicated hierarchy structure that has some nuance to it that our more senior leaders are the ones that are more involved on the financial negotiation piece. But, real succinctly to answer your question is we do have a certification process where you have to pass a demo basically with our internal team before you go to market on your own with demos and speaking about our platform. It's been really interesting to learn over the years. So we're Sparks now five and maybe call it 5.25 years old, 5.5 years old. All have been with the guys now since the earliest days. My 5 year anniversary is coming up on Feb 1. I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, okay. Cool side note. But the evolution of what we've done in just the first 5 years, we started with one or two basic tools that we knew were a problem that agents had. And immediately we unlocked pathways to them having more time available to go and sell more to their customers.
Mhm.
And we found some other things too that are involved in an agent's life. And just by asking questions on how we can make that easier for them really accelerated our growth curve. And today the evolution is now we have like 30 different features inside of the platform that all have these wonderful benefits to the agent. But, if in a demo context, we actually have to be really nuanced and really aware of, not every person that we're talking to needs to know all of these different parts of the technology. And then some conversations, they have to go 2 and 3 times, in an appointment or, 2 or 3 appointments before our customer actually understands all the depth of the offering. So we've come really far. We've got a very robust set of tools, and it's lovely to sell, man. I got to tell you, I can feel myself going into more salesman hat mode than kind of more of a conversational. So I got to be careful, but I get
Well,
really
no,
excited
that's good. And
about it.
I want to hear salesmanship mode in a second because I want to learn more about your platform. But it's interesting, you've congratulations on the growth and the success. But I think when you've got that new person, there's so much organizational intelligence, right? I mean, you've in the last 5 years, not only has your product evolved, your understanding of the needs of your agents that you're selling to has evolved, and their customers, and so there's a lot, as you said, a lot more nuance, a lot more to the story. So I'm wondering, with that new hire, at what point when they're, let's say, not on a demo, but they're out in the wild and they're in an elevator and they run into an agent, are they, how long does it take for them to get comfortable with the storytelling about why Spark Advisors, and with the discovery conversation about drilling down to really identifying what's going to resonate with that agent in that 90 seconds in an elevator, right?
Oh
Like,
man, I love that you're asking those. Yeah, those are solid. From what I've observed, it takes 6 months before they're truly comfortable and what I like to call electric, right? Because we are still field sales people, which means, to your point about being out in the wild, there is that moment where you're either at a business networking event. A lot of our people are small business owners. So oftentimes we might shake hands at a chamber of commerce meeting, for example, or an industry event where health insurance carrier employees or medical group employees are all gathered plus our people, and you have to learn tight elevator pitches that are impactful. And so we might start with something as simple as Spark makes agents lives easier, you save time, you run a better business with less stress, period, hard stop. Right. However, the assumptions built into that are this is an insurance agent where that stuff matters to, right? If it's super cold, Spark's a technology playing in the insurance space. And if you'd like to learn more, I'd love to talk to you about it. And then we might sometimes have to be super nuanced where for a doctor, it's like, look, we can help you close gaps that will impact revenues earlier in the year for you, that make your net revenue cycle profitable at the end of 12 months. And that helps move the needle for us in a different context. And it could take some of our people, it could take almost a year before all of that nuance is understood. I've been doing this 16 years, so I have an unfair advantage in that side. But that's why I'm in the leadership role that I'm in, because as we've been building this company, to your point, we have now internal communications that have evolved, right? All for growth. Like we have new director of revenue ops, we have new head of agent success, and each of them has segments of the business that they are responsible for. And so we actually have to have an awareness of how we communicate internally with leadership for their internal metrics and what they're measuring, but then how we maybe don't talk so much about internal metrics and still have sort of a relevant conversation with our agent out in the field. It's a lot. It's really, really a lot. There's a lot of
it is, yeah. And I think there's also that need for that new person to really kind of help them understand the why and keep things simple. So they're also become good investigative reporters, right? And when they're in that elevator, they're really trying to understand the needs that agent might have, and then making sure that their story, is a fit, right? Or which story is a fit. So,
That's
okay,
right.
so that's interesting. I want to talk to you more about all that stuff. But on the side, when it comes to your technology, like people who are watching this are probably like, "What's Spark Advisor? I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
What's the value prop? Explain to me." I'm going to put you on the why now. All right. So,
Yeah.
why does an insurance broker and or a doctor or a patient, like, what's the give me the explanation of Spark Advisors, and kind of explain it in layman's terms so we can
You
follow.
got it. You got it. So working with a Spark advisor anywhere in the country gives you a more holistic, a better, more efficient, and better organized experience in your healthcare journey. The independent broker is sort of the first person that a customer will speak to. And there's a lot of actual intimacy that goes into the conversation. It's why I think when we connected the first time, Ed, speaking about how, Spark is here to enhance and create opportunities for humans to have more interactions. We're not trying to create an AI machine that'll get rid of the human being. We're trying to create some efficiencies that help agents free up time so that they can have more of the human interaction. I had mentioned to you, and I talk about this to a lot of people in our space. One thing that we take for granted oftentimes is that an independent broker has to deal with sensitive information. We could just talk about medications as an example. We might have somebody that's on a specialty medication that is, treating a chronic condition. And that person may not want the whole public to know. They may even not want family to know about that medication. So there's a trust that has to be established there. And there's a lot of salesmanship and a lot of skill that goes into that piece of the sale for the agent. I think that our team does a really good job of being situationally aware of that. We have so much expertise on support for that agent that not only can we, deal with the dynamics that the agent is dealing with in that moment, we also know that the good agents who do that very well, they get burdened by what we call post-enrollment service work.
Mhm.
And so that's an area that we've identified that if we put investment in, we can make a significant impact on the industry. And that's where Spark has really, really, really made some gains. For the audience, for the layman's terms, Spark basically is the business that works in between the health insurance carrier and the 1099 subcontractor. And
Mhm.
we provide services for both parties. For the health insurance carrier, we process commission payments because those independent brokers are commission work only. They're not on payroll. That helps keep insurance costs down, oddly enough, right? Like that's a controversial topic, but having external distribution helps keep costs down, right? Overall, they have a lot less overhead to manage, and they need scale. I mean, the Medicare population is continuing to grow, right? We have like 13,000 people a day coming into the Medicare space. So there still is this operational need that health insurance carriers, desire, and our company, provides an excellent experience for the health insurance carrier. So we manage those competencies, those proficiencies really well for the likes of United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, Cigna, Anthem, the big names, and some of the regional names, Scan Health Plan, Alignment, Devoted Health, right? And more. There's many, many more. And so we do that very well at scale for them anywhere across the country. We can manage commission payments for them. We can manage data blocks and data sets for them on broker interactions with customers, enrollment data, seasonality of the business, retention and accretion. If we see a pocket of agents that might be having challenges with disenrollments, we can quickly identify who that is, get on top of it, and help a carrier recover or understand why this dynamic is happening.
That's
Similarly, sometimes we have doctors that'll make changes in and outside of in a network or out of a network, and there's communication pieces that need to be developed and executed on as fast as possible. And so we have tools in place to help get those communications out, and humans there too to support all of that work. And all of that goes in on the back end. The consumer typically doesn't know all of those moving parts. And so when a broker arrives either at the kitchen table or somewhere in the public, they have all this back pressure that's upon them. And for them to keep their composure and conduct a fully compliant sale, it's actually a really stressful thing to do. And so I think what our company has done is it has taken pieces of their work and lifted it off of their shoulders so that when they're having this moment, they can be better composed, less frenetic, less anxious about the details because we're covering so many details for them on the back end excellently, and they all love it. And that's why we've gone from, our first, call it 7 agents to now, over 9,000 on our way to north of 10,000 in less than 5 years. I mean, it's been fascinating to watch.
when you're describing that, it reminds me of what my dad always used to say. And when you choose a partner in life, do they take a load off or do they put one on? Right.
There you go.
So, Henry, I know we talked a little bit earlier before about what you're doing kind of internally with your own team and the sales training piece, which obviously is critical. So, talk tracks, they've got to be tight, they've got to be good. People have to be skilled when they're demoing, and they need to really kind of understand clearly not just what they're saying and why they're saying it, but how they talk about it. So, you give me a little bit of sort of insight into that on your side?
Yeah. Yeah. one thing that we find is that, like, well, I'll say of our platform, it's content dense. The risk that we have is that there are multiple benefits features that we can talk about. And so we notice where the people that are earlier in their selling tenure with us, they get so excited that they want to, almost oversell, right? They once they see the product, they see what's really good about it, they know how it can impact their prospect. Let me show you this. 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 And there's a little bit of less is more that we need to kind of train to. And then to your point about like a tight talk track, it's really interesting to understand how our buyer wants. They want like market credibility. They want us to understand where they're coming from and why they're even shopping in the first place. We have to speak to that. And we also have to have nuance on the problems that they have in the business. And on top of that, they want to feel like they're special, that they're not just like everybody else out there, because they're actively building their own brand, right? We've talked about how they are their own business owner in a way. They're a 1099 subcontractor, so they're responsible for their delivery of their experience. And so the biggest challenge that I see that we have to practice to, and I think this is an area that we still have a lot of work, ahead of us in a good way, is to hone our ability to say, okay, here's where we're credible. Here's what we think we know your experience is today. Let's talk about it. And then let me show you these 3 solutions. I'm going to do it efficiently and effectively. And I'm going to have poise while I'm talking to you about it, so that you feel good. You feel like, man, I could really grow my business here. And it starts to make you think like, boy, I don't have this today. And if I did, man, I would be great. And also I don't want, maybe I have partners or other agents that are with me that if they learn about this, they're going to either force my hand to go and get it, or they might go and leave me for this. Like I'm going to have to deal with this decision today, and maybe I wasn't ready to. And that happens a lot. And our sellers have to have poise through each of those levels. There's a lot to it.
And how do you currently sort of set them up for success in that regard? I mean, are you kind of doing a lot of one-on-one rehearsing with them, or do they have a batting cage of sorts or a simulator they can use to go through and get better skilled on their own?
Yeah. So we do have there's a few different things that we provide. One is we have a lead now that's kind of like sales enablement as we think of this person, and she does a wonderful job being able to contextualize a lot of the moving parts of this, what the seller's emotions are going to be, what the buyer's emotions we should think about or contemplate, and then just being open and honest about all of those things. I think one thing that I, in previous experiences is we didn't talk about both of those sides of the feeling, right? It was assumed that the salesperson gets it, and then they don't, we don't talk about maybe empathy or compassion for what the buyer might be going through or is mentally, thinking about. So I think our team, we do a really good job of being cognizant of that, of speaking to it. I think that makes us really effective. Then we do have a demo environment that each of our sellers has access to. And one thing that we do encourage is for them to go and do some of the click throughs and then just contemplate that experience. And then with them, they know like what the broker might go through from a carrier perspective, like the different logins that they have to experience. And they might know previous, competitors' environment as well. On top of that, we do share, an entire battery of information internally with each other, either via, internal communications, weekly gatherings, one-offs with me, one-offs with one of the others on the team. We do a lot of sharing best practices. Even today, I shared an email template on a prospecting outbound that I developed, and then also like an updated grid on the 3 things that stood out most during our demos in the last, call it 6 to 8 weeks, and what's resonating with the team today. So it's this fluid, organic, living thing that has to be adaptable and agile, right, as we go throughout the year.
That's great. And I think it's so intriguing what you all are doing at Spark Advisors. I think for the audience, maybe if you could kind of explain a little bit more about that value prop, because it sounds like game changing. If I were a Medicare agent, man, and I found out about you all, I'd be like, I gotta go there, right?
Yeah, and people will tell you, man, when I'm in the room, I feel like people like it light people on fire or electricity in a good way, right? Because they just get so excited about it. I think in terms of value prop, what we've observed is that with Spark and the platform experience, you can drive growth for scale for your business in a way that helps you feel better organized, better composed, less stressed out. All of your business components are in one place, and it really elevates the experience for you and your team. On top of that, we have thoughtful client interactions that are automated on behalf of the agent. So a customer now has more ways to have interactions with their customers, and with less clicks of the mouse and less steps that they have to do to create that. And it's the first time that the industry has really seen it, and it's been wonderful to watch the reactions that I get, as I talk through all the different things that we do for them. It's pretty cool.
Well, you were telling me about all the different clicks that somebody has to go through, even just to find out how they get paid, right?
Yeah.
Like, so can you explain that a little bit? Because
Yeah.
that was kind of a bit of a shocker to me. So
It's a shocker. It really is. So imagine, you're an independent broker. Your job is really to help a customer find the plan that fits the best for them. That's your number one responsibility. It's what you're passionate about. That's what you love to do. And in order to do that, you have to be certified and contracted with all of the different health plans that are available to the customer in the market, right? As often as possible. Sometimes that could mean, being contracted with, say, 10 carriers or more. You have bigger markets like Los Angeles, where you might have 10 or 13 or 14 different carriers that have some sort of offering. And then in other markets, you might only have 4 or 5. But the point is that for the broker, they not only have to manage the username and password logins for each of these carriers, right? And each of those carriers has different requirements for how often they make the agent update passwords, right? That's an interesting little tidbit of information there. And then on top of that, none of the portals are exactly the same. So if an agent wanted to figure out how they're getting paid on even just the big 5 carriers that are out there, big 5 or 6, it's different workflows that they have to remember. Those get updated on them constantly. And, I think the point that I was driving at earlier was that their brain feels melted just by trying to find where their money is. Right. And so our platform's been able to take all of that work on the back end, use some wonderful engineering power that our team has. And our agents, they log in, they click the mouse maybe 4 times, and they've got line item detail of where all their money's at, and how their customers are mapping and all of that good stuff. I mean, that's been a dream for a lot of our agency owners. And so, yeah, that's one of the cool things that we get to highlight, and my entire team gets really excited about that.
well, it's so empowering because then they can be out there in front of people selling instead of stuck in some system that requires this tedious process of going through and tracking down the information, which I mean, unless you're really into that kind of thing, nobody wants to do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember you told me on a previous conversation, what was the number of hours you saved your people
Yeah. Get this.
last
This is
year?
crazy. We just got this from our marketing team. In 2025, we saved our agents 1.1 million hours worth of client service work because of the work that we did on their behalf. I'll say that again. 1.1 million hours we saved our partners out there. I mean,
That's insane. That must have been a huge
insane.
boost to their productivity, right?
Yeah. Our partners that used our services and our platform grew by 40% or more year over year. 40%.
Wow. Well, you're doing
So
something right. That's awesome. That's
I think so.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine if you're like, imagine this. This is the side of the industry that I think a lot of people actually don't contemplate sometimes. Imagine if English is your second language, right? You're here, you're legitimate, you're working, you've got a team of maybe 5 or 6 others. Maybe you have a family. Maybe this is something that you would love to be able to put 60 hours a week into, but you can't because of all of the different things that I just described, the different software environments and this and that. You called out, if that frees up that much time for them, they could go and do what helps them grow the business most. On top of that, this person that I'm talking about too, if they have a team of agents with them, it also frees up the time for their agents. So we're not talking about it frees up time and changes the life of one person. It changes the life of an entire team. And that's really what helps that march forward and get us access to the areas of the country where people need our help the most. That for me is what's most inspiring. I've talked about this with some of the other leaders in our industry that are out there, that we have people, again, that will go into the neighborhoods, the homes, or expose themselves to the things that are challenging, that are less desirable, low income situations. Maybe there's health concerns out there. There's other risks that agents will go and put themselves through, but it's for the sake of helping these people that need us the most. And if anything, our tools and AI is only going to free up time so that they can go and do more of that, which is so needed right now. So I think that's the most fulfilling thing that I've observed as we've continued to do this work.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think, a lot of people are resistant to change. I think all of us are. There's some hesitation to that and concern about the lift associated with that. Give me an example of kind of, let's say you're an independent agent, or maybe you've got 3 or 4 people on your team, and you're kind of thinking, all right, this looks like something that's actually really a great opportunity for us. What does that process look like? And how do you help them get up to speed, and how long does it take?
Yeah, yeah, it's great. One thing that we joke about in the industry across the board is that we love the work that we do, but growing up as call it maybe in our high school years or college years, when we were thinking about our career, a lot of us never said to ourselves or our folks, like we saw that person on TV that said, "Hey, by the way, when I grow up, I want to be a Medicare agent, right? Or a life insurance or health insurance agent, right?" It's just we don't. Who has a point of reference for that, right? Yeah, usually insurance agents carry this sort of kind of, "Ooh, stay away, you're the hard you're the hard
Uh-huh.
salesman," or what have you. And so what's really interesting about that is a lot of us who have come into this business, it's from like a word of mouth referral. Either family brought us into the business because the baby boomer population was exploding, there's not enough agents in the space, come and figure this out. There's an opportunity to make some money, work your own hours kind of idea, 1099 stuff, right? There's all that. And then what we see is as more and more people come in that way, and they start to make a better living than they may have anticipated, they start to develop the sense of loyalty, right? They owe gratitude to the person that brought them into the business. And so oftentimes my team will encounter this moment where we know we have this wonderful experience that we've created, that our team has created for them, right? With our tech and our service. But it's hard to log into a platform and say, by the way, we recognize that you made a big change with, maybe the person that brought you into the business to be here. How do you help somebody, feel that that was a good decision for them? And frankly, it's probably one of the most difficult conversations that we have, where we ask them to think about, breaking up with the person that maybe brought them into the business, or conversely, if they love what they see and they know that the person that brought them into the business would benefit from it, why don't we talk to them as well? And we could see about maybe this could work for everybody. And sometimes that works beautifully well. Other times it goes way up the chain, and we hit a place to where we identify that, for today we can't make it happen. But I would say there's actually more resistance to breaking up with the person who brought me into the business than there is any other objection that we encounter out there.
And once they've made that decision that, okay, you know what, going forward, makes a lot more sense for me, and perhaps they can bring along the person who brought them in, which would be ideal. Once they get there, what is that learning curve, or that
Yeah.
onboarding process? Does it take 30 days, six
Yeah.
months?
It honestly, it takes a few months, and there's a reason for it. There's a technical set of communications that has to go through the powers that be, right? Carriers have to be notified, and then there's some paperwork that has to be done. Then there's an onboarding experience that they'll go through, where we have to look at their existing book of business, some data, where that's housed, how it's housed, getting it up into our platform so that they can utilize it properly. And then we also have to build out marketing assets, where a lot of the experience that we're creating for them that's consumer facing is going to be uniform and done beautifully, right? Very elegant way for them. And that takes time. And then on top of that, to get the full experience, they would also need to process enrollments so that the post enrollment automations take effect. And so depending on the different, sellers and their profiles, some people do it part-time. So, after the big selling season, they go to a much further, part-time kind of workload. It might take them 5-6 months before they see all of the beauty really humming on autopilot and making their lives wonderful. And then for the other agency owners that bring on, large teams and what have you, they have to make sure that every member of their team is accounted for, has done everything that they need to move over, gets all of their marketing assets generated, and then they start to see the magic happening. And our client services kicking in, and their agents are saying, "Boy, this is so great. We're so happy you made this decision." It can take 3-4 months before we really get there all together.
Yeah, well, anything that's worth anything doesn't come with that initial sort of cost, right? So, I mean, that upfront investment sounds like would pay off in spades after. I mean, it feels like nowadays, especially, and it's becoming more and more apparent, if you're not leveraging systems like yours and AI, and you're not using that as a force multiplier, you're going to be left behind. And it seems like they're going to have to transition, I would guess, but at some point, it seems
Yep.
inevitable. How are some of the other carriers offering similar products, or is yours kind of one of the ones leading the way?
This is probably the hottest topic literally right now. Is you and I are talking about this topic. There's other people in the Medicare Advantage plan thought leadership space that are talking about this topic as well. And one thing that's really interesting, this is maybe like a sidebar, interesting insight, is that Medicare Advantage, for all of the wonderful things that it does, it operates inside of fixed revenues. And because it's like federally subsidized in a lot of ways, it's the money fluctuations don't happen in the way where we can like solve for margin with hyper speed. And
Yeah,
what I mean by that is, like, a carrier has to size up. If a carrier wanted to make an AI investment, they literally have to they have to contemplate like how much they rob Peter to pay Paul in a way.
yeah,
It's right. It's if I make that investment, well, here's what I give up. So there's a lot of cost of opportunity associated with it. That's one way where I think why our system has actually even gotten more attention, because it solves some of the problems that make an agent's lives easier with the carrier. The carriers benefit from it indirectly and they love it, right? Now, that said, because of the pressures that are in the system, we do think that carriers are going to make some more strategic investments that help them free up time and get more even further with their customer experience. So we do see this world where our tools plus what carriers might be able to do, it's like if they can lean on us, they can keep their plans competitive. They won't have to think about giving less investment to the health plan that they're offering the market. And then we can go and streamline a bunch of stuff for them that makes their sales force, like you mentioned, a force multiplier for them. So I think internally we look forward to what that looks like for us, and we love that we're so relevant now for the carriers, that we're actually having those conversations. Like, before us, it wasn't, where was the leadership and who could think about solving those problems? And we seem to be the ones right now that we're getting that phone call often, and it's pretty cool.
that's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, Henry, it's been awesome having you on.
Right on, man.
And enjoy that weather out there in Arizona. And
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, warm vibes to whoever's watching this. It's really warm out here.
and good luck. Keep on, onward and upward with Spark. You guys are doing great stuff. I love it.
Hey, I hope to do this again with you sometime, man. This has been a real pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
Likewise. Thanks, man. Bye bye.